Chris Bowen, Mike Simmons, Bryn Tillman, and Daryl Perel. And thanks for joining us today live on LinkedIn Live. We are excited that you are here with us. I'm not sure how many of you are here today. And we are going to do 4 episodes while we're sitting here today. We are going to talk, but we're primarily going to talk about the difference between micromanaging and managing successfully. So let's talk about that. As we go through, we're going to talk about 4 topics this week. In these 4 episodes, we're going to talk about why won't sales people keep the CRM up to date. We're going to talk about constant surprises. We're going to talk about funnel reviews and why they feel like a waste of time. And then we're going to talk about stalled deals. So we're going to dive right in to our first episode. Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. I'm Liz Hyman, your host, and I am here with your Sales SOS podcast crew, Chris Bowen, Mike Simmons, Bryn Tillman, and Daryl Perel. And we're here this week. We are talking about micromanagement, right? How do you manage successfully without micromanaging? How do you hold a team accountable in a positive way without making them feel like they're being micromanaged, or maybe even worse, being left to their own devices with no support? So we want to support our team. We want to hold them accountable, but we don't want to do that icky, nitpicky, standing over their shoulder and making sure they're pushing the right buttons kind of micromanaging. So let's talk about that. I think one of the places that we have where we see this a lot is in the CRM. And I know I've had this conversation with many salespeople and many sales managers, and I'm guessing my team sitting here has seen the same, which is, we get ready to do the funnel review or the pipeline review, and nothing is updated. And so we spend our whole time going, well, this deadline is overdue and you have no action. And who else did you talk to? And so we're sitting here trying to have a conversation. The manager's trying to do their prep work in advance to be prepared to figure out what questions to ask. There's not enough information, and what is in there is out of date. And so we waste time, which seems really micromanaging, right? Like, oh, well, let's fix that close date. Oh, well, let's fix that amount, right? Nobody wants to have that conversation. So let's talk about what's happening and why it matters. And then let's talk about what do we do about it? Like, why not use the CRM? We spent a lot of money on it. Come on, people, use the CRM. I'm begging ya. I'm pleading. I'm on my knees. Please, right?
I mean, I would start by saying it's not, the salespeople don't see it as the best use of their time.
Why?
Often it's cumbersome. Not to call any specific one out, but some of them, there are 12 steps just to put in somebody's name. Like, there's a lot of difficulty. I mean, there are some really great great CRMs that people use because they're simple. It's a couple of steps and it's done. And now with AI, it should be easier. I know I have a client now that has integrated beautifully. It's all through, not to give it a shout out, but it's all through Microsoft Dynamics, the whole Microsoft suite. They get on a Teams call. That call, the transcript is automatically saved into the CRM under the right account. And even though Microsoft Dynamics can be cumbersome, the AI now is supporting it, hopefully to get a better adoption. But I think the biggest challenge is it's not easy. I'm going to tell you, I am terrible at my own CRM. I have a Google form that I fill out that my assistant then goes and puts it in the CRM because I'm so bad at it. So, and it's like, that's horrible, but it just takes up so much time.
I mean, I think one of the things that, and I know I've covered this in a past episode, it's when you have your CRM designed by everybody in the organization. So every group has their fields, whether that's marketing, finance, sales, and you've created all these required fields that you have to get to in order to get anything updated. you're just creating barriers for people to put in data entry. You need to make it as simple as possible to get the information that you need in order to move that stuff forward. If you make it too complex and you put also, like I had a previous company where they had over 2,000 services, many of which sounded very much the same. And you're expecting somebody to input that on the first step. This is going to be a deal for this particular service. And then if you didn't, then you're getting beat up on the back end for putting in the wrong service. It's like, how am I supposed to tell the difference between all these things, right? Like, and at this point in the sales cycle, it doesn't matter. If I get later on in the sales cycle, it's going to matter because that's maybe how we're hiring and how we're staffing up or moving resources to wherever they need to be. But early on, I mean, most companies I've worked at, our sales cycles go anywhere from 6 to 24 months. So if you're asking me at day 0 that I'm supposed to put this information in something that might not close for 2 years, when I know our services are all going to change, okay. Do I have a whole lot of confidence in that? No.
So too many choices, the wrong information being required at the wrong point in the sales process.
Yep.
Mike, what you got?
Mike was waiting to go last because he
Okay,
knows.
Daryl. Sorry, Daryl, you go next. Mike's going to go.
He's been very patient. I've seen from the very beginning. So that smirk on his face. I'll let them all go, and then I'll tell them what the answer really is. So everything that's been said is valid. What I've experienced often is, yes, you're always going to have certain reps who are just either lazy or they're technologically challenged or they're just disorganized. And that's a discussion for another day. Do you keep them? Do you not keep them? I won't have that right now. What I've seen is that CRMs are often made for admin. They're made for reporting. They're made for the execs. They'll claim they're made for the reps to help them work their patch, but rarely is that actually the truth. And you want proof in that. And I wish Renee was here today because she would probably back me up on this. Cannot tell you how many times that we've gone to a rep and we've shown them a report and we said, look, you haven't made these calls. You haven't done any follow-up on this in X number of weeks. And they'll go, where are you getting that from? I can't find that. How are you getting that? I get that all the time. How are you getting that? In other words, the reps are looking for a tool to help them manage. It's their own little mini business. But no one's taken time to actually make it really easy for them, to slowly teach them a little bit, one at a time. Hey, here's a little feature this week. I'm going to show you. Here's a custom view that you can see. Here's how you can, see the calls that you haven't followed up on. And by the way, I'm going to ask you these 5 questions every single week we get together for a one-on-one. So the views are pre-built for you, so you're not caught off guard. When you make it user-friendly for them, you think about the user, and I like Bryn's point about it takes 6 clicks to put a name in. It's the same concept. Making it usable, making it valuable, making it worth their time is a game changer in my experience. And we often just miss that because the RevOps people are getting heat from the executives because they want the reports for the board. And that's the focus, not the actual reps using it. So, okay, Mike, give us the real answer, brother.
I think we're wasting our time. And the reason why I think we're wasting our time is because in a lot of instances, we're trying to solve for the wrong thing, or we're not clear on what we're trying to solve for. So are we solving for a behavior challenge, which is what the people are actually doing? Are we trying to solve for a process challenge, which is the things that should happen in a specific order to achieve a result? Are we trying to solve for a something else challenge, whatever that thing is? And if your CRM was built by RevOps and RevOps is being influenced by the leadership on how that CRM is supposed to be built, and the leadership hasn't managed a deal cycle from beginning to end, since they either lost their hair or had darker hair or had fewer wrinkles or whatever, then you're just doing it wrong. And so I think the accountability question is more about how do you help your team hold themselves more accountable to the things that they commit to, not how do you hold them accountable? How do you help them hold themselves accountable? And if you're constantly changing the requirements, which is what a lot of us do, especially when sales leaders are around for 14 months and then gone. And we all know that based on their pre-negotiated contract, if they're gone in 14 months, they were likely gone 6 months earlier. Since we know that those things happen, then maybe what we should do is stop chasing the whole, hey, here's how you hold your team more accountable, and actually kind of shift it to what we're really trying to solve for. And I think that's why I think we're wasting time, because we're just kind of going around in circles around this stuff, and we keep doing it.
So let's back up for a second. So the first question is, if you talk to my friend John Farrar, who created, he has a CRM now called Nimble, but a long time ago, my friend John Farrar created a CRM called Goldmine. And Goldmine, he created after he went through the Miller-Hyman programs. I don't know if you guys know that lore, but I love that story. And he's like, well, where do you keep all this stuff? And when he created that CRM, the way he created it, he designed it for a sales rep to manage the work that they need to do to be successful. Now, the evolution of the CRM from there has gone a lot of different directions, and we sort of lost track of the most important thing. And the most important thing is, I have a sales rep who has a territory that they're responsible for, and I need to provide the tools that help them to be effective. Now, we still have to change habits, get people doing things, and you still may need to hold them accountable. But if the tools that you've put in front of them undermine their effectiveness, you've missed the point, right, Mike? That's what you're saying.
Actually, I'm not being clear. I mean, and maybe I'm just old and a jerk and all those other things. And maybe all of that is true too. But all of this is so heavily dependent on what you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
So are the people not doing their job because you hired the wrong people? Maybe you hired the wrong people. Are the people not doing their job because you are mismanaging expectations in the way that you communicate with your team? Maybe. Are they not doing your job because you suck as a leader? Probably. Like, all of those things can be out there. So I think if we want to solve for behavior, let's just be on that piece. So let's say it's a behavior thing. There's a very clear model out there around behavior change. BJ Fogg has models that are out there. Mitchie, which is in a group in the UK, came up with one that's called COMB. It's a behavior change wheel. C stands for capability, knowledge, skill. Do they know what to do? Can they actually do it? For those of you who've met me in person, you know that I am not built to dunk a basketball. I know what it looks like. I can dunk on a 3-foot high rim. Yeah. But on a 10-foot rim, I'm in trouble unless I've got a trampoline. Give me someone to run through. I could run through them. I could stop them. That's what I'm built to do. So capability, knowledge, skill, opportunity, operating environment, leadership, culture, the things that we keep piling on. Have we created the right opportunity for them to be successful? And then the third one is motivation. Do they give a crap? They either give a crap or they don't give a crap. If any of those three are not there, it's really hard to change behavior. So if you're trying to change behavior and you've not assessed those three, you're wasting your time and you're wasting their time. But if it's not a behavior thing, if it's actually something completely different, meaning it's, I don't know what it might be. Like, they just, knowledge and actually, these are all behaviors. I mean, what's the micromanagement? Micromanagement is trying to be in someone's crap all the time to drive a specific behavior, like manage it, getting them to push the buttons. So I think it starts with behavior. And then from there, you kind of scaffold out and figure out, okay, well, what are we, which aspect do we start to focus on? Too often, it's super easy to go check the box and get a new tool. I mean, Daryl joined a company that is solving a problem, a learning experience platform. It is solving a problem that exists within learning management systems. It's almost like we need to create a sales experience platform for
Absolutely.
professionals or something like that. I don't know, but anyway,
I was going to suggest that, but
I'm
they want to
rambling.
be
I'll stop.
Yeah,
obvious.
but see, this is my point exactly, Mike. I mean, I'm right there with you. What is we always talk about the buyer journey. What is the seller journey, right? What do they have to do in order to do their job successfully, and how are we supporting them or undermining them in that effort? And nitpicking about did they fill this out or did they fill that out or is that up to date is meaningless if they don't have the tools or the skills or whatever it is that's needed along and support along the way to do their job along their journey to be successful. If I'm wondering why they can't close a deal because legal won't just freaking look over the contract, then I'm barking up the wrong tree, right?
I could share a very specific client example without naming names that's happened here in the last 3 weeks. Client that I've worked with for over 8 years. So that it's hard. It's probably easy to kind of figure out some names, but anyhow, the two things we're measured on, or we're primarily measured on the amount of money that we generate for the business, closed won deals, right? Bookings. In order to do that, we have to create pipeline. We have to develop pipeline. So what I found after we've been working on some things is there was an opportunity where there were 3 different team calls with the same person on the customer side, but the opportunity was never built. And the reason why the opportunity was never built is because they never got to the point where they could quote it. And I was like, I about lost my crap, as you can imagine. And what had happened was a year and a half earlier, he'd had a conversation with a key leader in the business, and they raked him over the coals around what opportunities were in the system and why they weren't in there, and why things were in there that hadn't already been quoted and whatever. So he'd just been beaten to not put that stuff in. And now I'm laying into him for not putting it in and following the process where we put things in at validation and we have probability of sale set at 5% for a specific reason. But because we're not putting them in, we no longer have the data that says the reason this deal was closed lost is because we couldn't fulfill the client requirement on the content. All of that stuff for the last number of years has been lost because we weren't building opportunities, or at least the last 18 months, because we were building them at quote. And so there's it's not even the system stuff. The leadership stuff can really just damage individuals inside the business. And it comes across as micromanagement or being overbearing or any of these other things. But the reality is I mean, again, I think it's poor leadership, poor design, and inaccurate ability to assess the problem we're solving for. I'll get off my soapbox. Sorry.
I think a lot of times, Mike, the organizations build their CRM initially. Maybe it's right, but over time, they don't go back and audit and say, is this still fulfilling the purpose that we need it to, given all of the changes that we've introduced? Does it serve the variety of audiences that it has to serve, right? It's fine that we have multiple people that need the data, but we're really expecting a pretty small handful of people to provide that data. And are we serving those people by the system design? Because I mean, I've seen these things start really simple, easy, great, can do it all from my phone if I needed to, where then it gets into things where they go off the rails and nobody goes back in and looks and says, does this stuff make sense? So
yeah, everybody just keeps adding fields.
Yeah. So it's never in lieu of, it's always in addition to.
I also think there's this missing piece of explaining to the reps the why.
Yeah.
Right. Like if I don't know the purpose of me putting this in and I don't understand how this helps me or my client or the company, that it just feels like noise. If I don't understand why, I'm less likely to do it. But if I understand the logic or the reasoning behind it, I'm more likely to do it because it makes sense. And this is also the best opportunity to say, oh, there really isn't a why here. Let's take it away. Right. Like I think coming at this, if you're going to audit, where we are today, go through every field that we're asking them to do and say, what are we doing with this? Why do we need it? What's the impact? And if I can answer that in a way that makes sense, take it away. And I think then we will come down to fields that we're using that make sense for everyone.
Because I said so as the reason to do something, stopped working on me when I was about 12. So to think that it's going to work now outside of coaches, that was a little bit different, but
it still works on me when my wife says it. Just
That's
so
right.
you know.
That's right, Carol.
I know there was I know we've talked about it before, and I throw these models out there not because because they work. Like when you have a simple model and you apply it to the right task, you can use it to really get some interesting things done. The role reflective model, ROLFE, is 3 questions. What? What's the definition? Like, what is this thing? So what? What does it mean? Now what? What are we going to do next? Like, what decision are we going to make? How are we going to use it? So if you can't answer those 3 questions, then you've really got to ask yourself, do I really need to be capturing it? And then beyond it, you can start to look at how else can we capture without a human having to put things in? Because we're in this conversation. I'm looking at my phone. I'm checking out stuff over here. I'm watching the Masters over here. I'm wondering what Daryl's got on in the TV show in the background. The last time we were on, we were watching hockey in the background. But there are all these things that these distractions that are out there, and it's sometimes people just don't do things because there's just too much noise.
Well, I think there's another important piece of this. Like, Bryn, if I were to ask you, why don't you fill out your CRM? Probably the answer is because it's an extra step outside of what you're doing every day, right?
Correct.
Right? Because you're doing all of these other things. So we, as business owners and facilitators and content writers, everybody sitting in this room just doing all of those things. So when we are looking at our CRM, it's out of it's not always the path we're in the middle of, right? We do that to salespeople too. One of my clients, the salespeople had
That's why Nimble is good, by the way.
I love Nimble. One of my clients, the sales reps had to go to 5 different tools multiple times in the sales process in order to do their job. And I'm like, how do you do that effectively? And then the CRM really does become just someplace where I'm storing information and I have to go in and update that, because it's not the path that gets me to my success. It's not the tool that I'm using that helps me succeed. It's just one more noisy thing, to Mike's point, that is interrupting the flow of me getting my work done. So when we're looking, this is what I mean by the seller journey. What if I want my sales team to fill out the CRM? Then that CRM has to be their home. They have to live in it. It has to support them. It has to help remind them of their next step and help them easily get in touch with people. It has to be up to date. It has to be pertinent and relevant and timely. And the moment they have to open it up in order to put information in, they're not going to do it because it isn't easy and it's just work that doesn't support their outcomes. So if I'm nagging at them endlessly to fill out their CRM, then we need to back up and go, well, why aren't they in their CRM? Is the CRM the tool that helps them, or is it just a nuisance? They're just staring at me. What you can't see is they're just
so the technology should work for the human. The human should not work for the technology. And I know I sound like one of those toys that you pull the string back and I repeat the same crap, but the technology should work for the human. The human should not work for the technology. And if you've got your humans working for your technology, then maybe you need to rethink how you're doing it.
So stop nagging, stop micromanaging. If you want your team to use a tool, make that tool easy to use, right? So we need to rethink or reposition how we're thinking about why we're micromanaging.
And as Brent said, make sure they understand, why is this important? Why do we need this information? When do we need this information? most people want to do the right thing, but if they have trouble getting into understanding what's right, then they're probably going to choose to not do it, because
Yeah.
it's not
And if
like
the
we all don't have
CRM is
demand.
if the CRM is the tool we use to bludgeon them, then the less information, the better, right?
Or they'll just do the bare minimum, right? Like, it all depends on how you're really structuring it and focusing on their use, right? Like, if you make it difficult, you're going to get minimal support. If you make it where you're beating them up, you'll probably get compliance, but you're probably not going to get the best information.
And as a sales leader or a company leader or a sales manager, your first job is to do everything you can to remove every obstacle in your company that prevents your sales team from selling. And your second responsibility is to provide the support that they need to sell effectively. And everything else you do is irrelevant if you are not doing those two things. All right. Any last mic drop moments before we wrap this session up, this episode?
I just want to know: did we solve why my sales reps why won't my sales reps keep the CRM updated? What was the net conclusion we had to summarize?
Because it doesn't work for them, I think, is what we came up with.
Right. And what I found interesting was how we all kind of said that, but in slightly different ways. Too many clicks, not designed for them. They don't know how to use it. Leadership has never carried a bag, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
I also noticed, if anybody's paying attention, watching us live on video, totally unrelated, but noteworthy, because Mike's watching my TV. I also watch weird things. The men are all underdressed, wearing stupid t-shirts, and the women are looking dynamite. All right. So there we go. I just want to say that.
Well, thank you, Daryl. We try. All right. That's a wrap. Oh, go ahead.
For the record, I'm in sweatpants. So it's only
Yes, but they're stylish. All right. They're very stylish.
Okay. Just for the record, I am in my brand new jeans, which are 3 sizes smaller than my last pair.
Woohoo!
Yay!
Very exciting.
I'm wearing a shirt that says I'm from the 1900s.
All right, that's a wrap for this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. Thanks for joining us. Okay, you guys ready? Okay. Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. I'm your host, Liz Hyman, and I am here with your Sales SOS podcast crew, Chris Bowen, Mike Simmons, Bryn Tillman, and Daryl Prell. And today we're talking about the difference between micromanaging and supporting. We don't want to micromanage our team. We also don't want to leave them out in the wild by themselves with no support. So how do we manage them effectively? And how do we have the right conversations in the right way to get the information that we need? I think one of the things that I hear a lot from sales managers, from company leaders, is why are the sales results always such a surprise? Like, I never know what's coming. I don't know when things are closing. Things close that I thought for sure we're not going to. I think we're going to hit our number and we don't, or we exceed the number and I have no idea. Like, why is it such a surprise? 80%, I'm going to go back to my stats, 80% of American companies cannot predict revenue for the year within 25% accuracy. Like,
Over what period of time?
a year.
No, but like over the next 12-month period?
Right.
So it's a rolling 12-month data point.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool.
So when you set your goals for the beginning of the year and you go, we're going to hit 40 million. And you go, well, based on history of this company, I don't know if we're going to hit 50 million or 30 million, but we're going to get somewhere in that ballpark. That's shocking. Like, that's shocking. And when your sales team tells you this is going to close in 3 months and it closes in a month and you're not ready, that's shocking if it's a really big deal. Or if you rev up for something, you prepare for something that's a really big deal that everybody was sure was going to close and it doesn't, it's shocking. And let me just first give a caveat, which is sales is about people, and people have emotions and things going on in their lives and live in a world of economic changes, and right. So there's a certain amount of uncertainty, but why is it like not just a little bit of uncertainty? Why is it shocking? Why are we so surprised?
I mean, I think it's because, well, first of all, forecasting is like guessing. We're psychic. We can feel what it's going to look like. I have a gut, there's not data behind it, but also not just past data, because past data in today's world does not predict future results, right? So past results. And I think a lot of it is that we're not looking at the right data today. We might be looking what did this look like 3 years ago in April? And what did it look like 2 years ago in April? Doesn't mean what April 2026 is going to look like. And I think that is part of the problem is, we think that data is accurate today. And there are so many other factors that have been thrown in to economics, to what's going on, all the other things that we won't talk about here, but that they're not looked at. The other thing is, there's a number that's pushed down from the board. There's a number that's pushed down from the C-suite. And so our forecasting is created to match or exceed that number, where that number wasn't realistic or wasn't on anything except I want to do 120% of what we did last year. I have a client right now, that the VP came to me and said, okay, came down from the top. We need to hit 140% of last year's numbers. There was nothing else around that except that's what we need to hit. So when we're forecasting around, a prayer, we're not going to hit it. It's guessing. It's, we're not psychic, or we try to be.
Yeah.
There are too many times where we attempt to condition, or we ask our reps to do certain things for the good of our business rather than the good of our customers. And it starts to sway pieces. It's hey, let's see what we can do to get that thing over the line at the end of the quarter, because we're a little bit short on this quarter. And then we give away discounts. We evaporate pipeline. We lose trust with customers, or condition them to expect that, hey, if I always buy on December 30th, I'm likely going to get a better deal than if I buy at another point in the year. So this is one of those things where we do it to ourselves, and we keep doing it over and over and over again. I think it's interesting that the percentage is that far off 12 months out. I'd be interested in seeing what the data is 90 days out or 30 days out. I think the worst forecast categories that were put out in the marketplace, and I believe HubSpot did this originally, at least that's where a lot of marketing people were promoting it when they were playing CRM implementers on the sales side, is the forecast categories of pipeline, commit, and best. What in the hell are we talking about? I mean, a commit is what was closed won. It was what was signed. I don't know how you can commit anything until if it hasn't been signed.
It's a verbal commitment is what they're talking about. A verbal commitment, which means nothing, right? Means
Okay.
absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I mean, we know how that goes. Like the question I like to ask people when this thing comes up is say, how many times have you been committed to purchasing something inside your business, and then for one reason or another, you either slowed the process down, decided not to move forward, or went with an alternative? Like, how many times has that ever happened, or does it happen? And most of the time it happens. And you're kind of say, okay, well, what makes you think that you're any different than our customers?
I think
So
there's something interesting about that, Mike, that is worth talking about. So if you're in a business to business complex sale and your salespeople are talking to one or two buyers, and there are between 5 and 15 buyers involved in the buying decision, then chances are you're going to have way more surprises than not, right? Because you are not well positioned in those accounts, even sometimes your largest accounts, to really know how that buying decision is getting made. What are the factors that will undermine your success? What are the timeline issues? Who are the people that have the final say? Who else? What other competitors are positioned to be successful? Right? If we aren't positioned well enough to know the answers to those questions, we're very likely to be surprised. And chances are, not only are we not positioned well enough, no one is asking those questions. How often are you in a meeting talking to a sales rep when you say to them, what could go wrong? Who else is in there? Who in the buying process is not excited about our result or about our, right? How often are we as leaders actually asking those questions, the hard questions that we want to just pretend aren't there?
I'll build on that.
Okay.
You're asking brilliant questions. Totally aligns with where I'm going. If the question is, why am I constantly surprised by what's happening in sales? A big reason, every company's different. A big reason I've seen, and both Mike and Liz are alluding to this, and what I'm about to say, is we single thread, even though we all know the multi-thread. All right. So we've got our champion, and we just want to ride that horse all the way to the end of the deal. And because we've single thread, we're only dealing with that champion. We don't understand that there's other people who have competing interests, other vendors, budgetary issues, whatever it might be. We've not uncovered any of that. So then when we miss it, because we're like, what the hell happened? We thought this was, we had a verbal, using that one, great one. Well, somebody else with more power shot it down. And because you didn't multi-thread, we didn't know. So that's why we were surprised with what happened in sales. My realtor 30 years ago, when I bought my last house, brilliant guy, short little guy, couldn't drive to save his life. I was new to the city, made me drive everywhere. I did not know where the hell I was going in the days of paper maps, people. And he made a comment to me because we were talking, I'm like the revenue guy. He's basically a self-employed businessman. And he made a brilliant comment. He said, buyers are liars. I know it's a cliche, but it's true. And it's not true in a malicious way. It's true. So if you just take them at their face value and you don't multi-thread, yeah, you're going to be surprised a whole bunch of times.
Well, and they may not even be lying to you. They may be lying to themselves, right?
Yes.
The CEO sends somebody out to go do the research to get the information so that we can all make a decision. And that person comes to believe they are leading this sales process.
Yep.
And they're often not. And I know everybody uses multi-threading. I call it my guy selling. You guys have heard me say that before. Like, my guy says, as soon as your sales rep says, oh, well, Joe says it's going before the board tomorrow. Joe says this. That's my guy selling. You're going to have surprises, right? Why else? I mean, I always love to hear the sandbagging thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I also just want to add in, I think the old way of doing discovery is no longer effective. So discovery has to change, right?
Yes.
Ant is like, makes my skin crawl, right? Now, yes, we have to get to budget, authority, needs, and timing, but we don't start there. And we come to the sales call, many folks, with the old way of thinking, the 1970s, what's keeping you up at night? And it's broken, and it's so poor, and there's so few leaders that are changing this dynamic. Like, we see a shift going to what we call chirp, which is, instead of starting with band, start with challenge, the history of trying to fix that challenge, the impact on the business, the risk of not making change. And where is it a priority in the business? It's about them. It's about the questions around their needs, not the questions around my needs as a seller. Here's the other thing. I can't believe I heard this Tuesday or Wednesday on a prospect call that said, well, we are absolutely sworn to not give away any free consulting. That we never, we can tell them what we can do for them, but we can't help them unless they're paying us. And I said, but they have YouTube, and they have Claude, and they have Google. So if you're not going to give them value, they're going to find it somewhere else. And chances are your competitor is bringing in value. So we have to reshape the way that we're running discovery, right? If we don't reshape it, then we're not going to uncover what they really need. And if we can really solve their problem, just because they have budget doesn't mean they're going to buy from us. So anyway, that's.
I also would say, what are the expectations that you've set for what you expect? And are you having the conversations throughout whenever your one-on-ones are, right? Are you actually having those conversations around particular deals and when they're gonna close, what's in the way, who are you working with? I've seen people in the past where an RFP comes out that we helped with. So let's say it's a positive, not blind RFP. And I've seen people be like, oh, they said they want to make a decision on this date and put that in as the close date. It's like,
that's the decision.
Almost never, right? Almost never. Like, we still got negotiation to do at that point, right? So it's like, I'm always like, you should extend that by 6 to 8 weeks to give room for that. And that way you're setting the proper expectation. Nobody's going to complain if that date pulls in. Lots of people complain if that date pushes out. So it's like, you have to be able to set those expectations and set the standards that you expect. Are there certain things that you expect to see based off of our past history? Things in a particular sell stage shouldn't be closing in the next 30 days, right? Because we know that that's never going to happen. So being able to understand both how you have it set up, because that can cause where some of your surprises are.
Mike, what you got?
Deals are kind of like kid, or like Hot Wheels on a track. So they're on their little car driving around on a Hot Wheel track. It's kind of moving its way through, and every once in a while there's this power up that speeds things up, or goes down a hill and picks up, or it tries to get up a hill but can't get as high and then kind of falls back, or it gets stuck, right? So your deals are either moving forward, moving backwards, or they're stalled. There is not another state that they're in. I mean, they could be dead. Yeah. So then it's no longer a deal. And I guess we mark it as closed lost and we move it out, right? So deals are either, if we agree, deals are either moving forward, making progress, next steps are clear, and someone is working on those next steps. Deals are going backward. Again, next steps are clear. We had to go backward and get some things, and we've agreed on those next steps. Or crickets are happening and things are stalled. Then let's figure out, okay, which one of those things is happening right now, and then let's go in and do it. I think the discovery piece and rethinking discovery is really important. And it's not discovery as an activity, it's discovery as this kind of a state of being. Like we're being curious with the way that we engage with our customers, and we're constantly learning about the things that they're working on so that we can determine where do we potentially fit in that, What else might be reprioritized? Where might our other risks be? Whether you med pick someone to death or bant someone over the head or spice up their, or their casserole or whatever the other one is, like it just you chirp away. Like there's all different ways to go through and do it, and these frameworks can help us. But if we can answer that question, do we have clear next steps? Yes or no? Are we actually making progress toward those next steps? Yes or no? And the one that I love the most in the CRMs, especially when you look at some of the report data across all of your deals, how many of those deals have the same next step?
Follow up.
And it's one of those where you're like, oh, that's cool. I'm really happy that I've got a professional salesperson operating in this instance, and all of our next steps are follow up, where I could just copy and paste and drop them in. So those next steps in that field are really important. And you can set up your CRM to keep historical data so that every time the next step field changes, it still keeps track of it inside the database. And you can go back in and see how things move along over a period of time if you've set things up properly. And in that instance, it's just turning the flag on maintain historical data, depending on which one you're using. So yeah, just are we coasting, going downhill? Are we falling backward, or are we stuck?
I think this leads us really well into our next topic of conversation, our next episode, which is how do you run a funnel review that isn't, or a pipeline review that isn't a waste of time. So I think that the outcome of this conversation is surprises happen because one, we haven't done our discovery right, and we haven't recognized that discovery is always happening. Like I often see discovery as a stage in the CRM, and I'm like, you're going to do discovery with every single person you talk to, and you're going to confirm that nothing has changed along the way, because things will change. So if we think that discovery happens as stage one and you're never doing discovery, we are always going to be surprised because we don't have our salespeople in the right state of mind, which is always learning. If we're single threading, if we have our my guy that we're talking to in a complex business to business sale, there are always going to be surprises. If we beat our salespeople over the head and give them rules that prevent them from giving us the right information, or punish them when they give us accurate information because it's not what we want to hear, we're going to be surprised, right? If we predict revenue, if we set our revenue goals based upon information that isn't accurate, or fail to identify what would be required to hit that revenue goal and just expect our salespeople to hit it, we are going to be surprised when they don't. So surprises happen when we as the leaders aren't doing our job well. It makes our salespeople not do their job well. When we force them to force a client to close before they're ready because it's better for us, or to buy the wrong thing because it's better for us, then we're going to have surprises. We're going to have surprises on the other end when we're trying to deliver. So think really carefully about what we expect and how what we expect can create the surprises that we're getting. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. Okay. Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. I'm Liz Hyman, your host, and I am here with your Sales SOS podcast crew, Chris Bowen, Mike Simmons, Bryn Tellman, and Daryl Prell. And today we're talking about, or these 4 episodes, we're talking about what is the difference between micromanaging and supporting. Like we don't want to micromanage. We don't want to nitpick and nag. If we're nitpicking and nagging our salespeople, we're doing it wrong. But at the same time, we want to hold them accountable so that they are successful. We want to provide them the support to be successful. So how do we do that as sales leaders, as company leaders? And I think a really good place where we see the difference between nagging and supporting is in a funnel review. And if you were in a room full of 1,000 salespeople and you said to them, everybody who loves doing funnel reviews or pipeline reviews, raise your hand. Mike raised his hand. I think most salespeople would not raise their hand. I think if you had 1,000 salespeople in a room and 5 of them raised their hand, that would probably be about right, because most salespeople hate funnel reviews. Why do they hate them? Because what do we do at a funnel review? We nag, we complain, we point fingers, we tell them they're not doing it right, we nitpick, we do all the things that nobody wants to participate in. So how, and this is like one of my favorite topics. I have to tell you, this is one of my favorite things. Like, you have to do funnel reviews because you and the salesperson need the opportunity to ask questions, to get clarity, to discuss, to come up with new ideas. We need this time together. But we all dread it because as a manager, I end up going, well, that's not up to date. And when is that really going to close? And we spend all our time making sure that the fields say the right things. And the salesperson is tired of you nagging them about the field saying the right things. So how do we run a funnel review that actually does what they're supposed to do? And this is one of those moments, I'm just going to say, this is one of those moments where my dad taught me this, right? My dad taught me, you don't nag your salespeople. That's ridiculous. You don't micromanage them and make them feel awful and make them walk away with their tail between their legs, feeling like they're the biggest failure in the world. My dad taught me this a long time ago. And it is so much a part of what I believe that I think it's important to talk about. So you guys, what are we doing wrong besides what I already said? And that may be all of the things. And how do we do it right? How do we make this not nagging, but actually supporting?
Hey, Liz, given that your dad taught you that, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, I will, because this is my favorite topic. So I want to say that one more thing that people do wrong in a funnel review. So a funnel review, let's talk about what one is. A funnel review or a pipeline review. I always call it a funnel because I grew up in the Miller-Hyman tradition, and I know that it is not a one-to-one, right? It takes many conversations to lead to a sale. So I call it a funnel review. And this is a one-to-one conversation with a sales rep about all of the deals in their funnel, not just what's closing this week, this month, this quarter, but actually everything that's in there that is alive and active. And it's an opportunity to help figure out, how do we maintain momentum, and how do we overcome objections, and how do we figure out whether they're really going to buy or not, and how do we weed things out and move things forward. And that's what a funnel review should be. What I think is one of the worst things that we can do is sit in a room with 5 or 6 people and expect them to sit and listen while we do this one-on-one work with our other sales reps. So if you want one really quick fix, is don't ever do that again. Don't ever do it again. If you want to say, hey, we've got these 3 things closing, let's all talk about what needs to happen to get them to fine. These 3 deals are stuck. We're in a regular meeting. Hey, you guys, let's brainstorm about how to unstick these deals. Those are great things. Do not, please, I beg you, do not make 5 people sit in a room and listen to you do a one-on-one. So for me, a funnel review is about, how do I make sure my pipeline is full so that I have the results I need 6, 9, 12, 18 months from now? And how do I keep things going forward and have momentum? So that means I'm having conversations and I'm asking tough questions. When is this really going to close? Do you think that's right? Is that really what they want to buy? Have we looked at other options? Have they given any signals that's not what they want to buy? Who else is involved in this buying decision? Have we talked to them? Do we know what their concerns are? Do they know what their relationship to the buying decision is? Do we know where budget's going to go in the company this year? And is this a priority? What things could undermine this sale? What things could go wrong? And the biggest, most important thing that the sales manager or leader or company leader can do in a funnel review is, how can I help you? And if everyone doesn't end with that, then you have missed the mark. That's my take on it. What do you guys think?
I think we should just end the episode.
Yeah.
I'm thinking we should let her start every episode.
Yeah.
Which would look pretty. Well,
Um,
most of you
the
are.
one thing I'll say, and it's kind of, we talked about this in the last episode, is as a sales rep, they have to know, why are we reviewing this, and what is the goal of this conversation on this deal? Like, you're asking me questions. Is this going to lead to better sales? Is this going to lead? So I guess my point is the review needs to help the sales rep move the deals forward. That's got to be the goal, right? The goal has to be because I can co-evaluate this all day long without the rep. I can pull my numbers, I can do my data, but from my experience as the managed sales rep back in the day, my best manager came to me and said, okay, here's this deal. Is it stuck? What are you going to do? What do you need from me? And you said that, right? You have to ask that, but every deal, what do you need from us? What do you need from marketing? What do you need? Okay, next deal. Where is this? You said last month this was going to move to, why didn't that happen? Oh, your champion left. What are you doing about that? What can we help you with? Right? Like, and every deal was about, what do we need to do with this deal to get it to the next, in the next step. And when you run your meetings with, now me as a sales rep, I am excited to come to this meeting, because you are going to, this is not about why didn't you do this. This is about, where are you stuck and what are we going to do to help you get to the next step for you. So now I feel like it's my therapy session, not my discipline session.
Right.
Right. And I can move it forward. That's my thought.
So my favorite word to keep in mind when you're doing a funnel review or pipeline review is momentum. It's all about momentum, right?
I think if you set expectations and train your reps right, they'll come to those meetings with what they need from you, not you having to always offer it up. They're coming and saying, here's the help I need. Here's how I think I should go about this. Then that becomes a much more powerful conversation than just you saying, oh, you need to do X, Y, Z, right?
No, and not reporting. So I love the idea that you set the expectation. This is not a reporting session.
Right.
I am not asking you to report on these. I'm asking you to prepare a conversation. Let's get ready to have a conversation about these.
Yep. And also, sorry, one last thing is expecting that those things that are earlier stage, idea stage, whatever you want to call it, that you're going to see churn there, and you should expect to see churn there. It's when things get later, much later, when we've done a lot of this work and those things churn, those are the things that become more painful. Not that they don't happen, and hopefully we have some visibility to it, but don't punish people when you see a lot of churn in those early stage opportunities. You should expect that if they're doing the right things.
No, we want to celebrate it, right?
That's right.
If it's not a qualified lead, stop spending time on it. Go find something new or focus on the stuff that's going to close, right? Stop wasting time.
The one thing I wanted to go back on is something that Chris was just talking about, and I'll H myself when I say this. I know I will. Often it is exactly what Chris was saying. It's the attitude that the sales manager brings to the conversation, right? If it's adversarial, if it's aggressive, if it's attacking, if it's intolerant, if it's demeaning, that's not going to be constructive at all. Whereas if it's collaborative, if it's forgiving, if it's patient, if it's coaching, if it's mentoring, but you can also be accountable. I'm not, you've dropped the ball 3 times on this one. Okay, now you screwed up at this point in time. But fair, they will come to you. I had a personal story happen in the last month where I literally had one of the sales reps share with me that, I'm a senior executive at the company. There's another senior executive at the company. And they were like, I hate talking to that. I love the person, that other person, great person. I hate talking sales with them. I'm always freaked out. But when I talk with you, I open right up. I don't hide anything. Like, why is that? And I knew right away what it was. It was just it was the approach. It was just the approach. And the reason I'm aging myself is the next statement. It's even more important now to be cognizant of this, because the current generation, Gen Z, for lack of a word, is much more sensitive to conflict. Much more. And the joke I have, and I share this, and they know I share this. My team knows I share this. I have 3 different people on my team that are all 25 or younger. And each of them gives me untold grief when I put a period in a Slack message. It's aggressive. All right. And well, we joke about that. That is a reality. And a lot of the sales reps come in new, they come in young, they're learning, right? And it's a different style. So if you don't adapt, you're going to be screwed, just point blank.
I'm going to attempt to kind of hit on a couple of the points that were already hit on, more just kind of to summarize and pull things along. To Liz's point around this multiple people being in pipeline or reviews or funnel reviews, way back in the day, we used to do these things in person. We go into an office, sit down, might do it once a quarter. And there are leaders who always go in the same order when they select people. And it usually is based on the chairs that people are sitting in, not the person. It's just easier to start from the left and work your way around to the right. So I would always sit myself as the last person on the right-hand side. Worst case scenario, I get picked first. More than likely, we run out of time and I don't have to do this crap. So depending on how you join your Zoom meeting, your Teams meeting, you may or may not be the last one in there. And if you start to see people organizing around this, it's another indicator of not getting a lot of value out of the meeting. The other thing that ends up happening is people will end up having client meetings during the time that these meetings are scheduled. Again, they're not getting a lot of value out of it. One of the things to hit on, and I think Bryn touched on this and a couple of others as we've been going through it, but be really clear around what your expectations are. Like, what are expected? Not only coming out of the meeting, but being prepared going into the meeting. Because if you're looking at their dashboards and their CRM information while they're in the room with you, then you're not doing your job. You haven't prepared yourself to have an educated conversation with them. And if you're continuing to change your questions throughout the process, again, you're not doing a good job. For me, when it comes to one-on-ones, I use 3 primary questions. What's working? What's not working? Where are you stuck? That's all I want to know. What's working? What's not working? Where are you stuck? Whether it's in the context of a deal or a context of the way that we're engaging with people. And when you kind of lay those things out, then you could start to say, all right, I know coming into this meeting, I've got an opportunity to either share something that is working that I might end up going out to the rest of the team because these are one-on-ones. I'm able to share something that's not working that we may need to discuss at some point, or share something that's stuck that we may need to figure out a way to get unstuck. If we know the goal and we set the right expectations, then what will end up happening in these meetings is new perspective will be gained. People will overcome blind spots that they have on their deals. You get so deep into the thing and you have these happy ears and this solid perspective, because you've got to be an optimist if you're in sales. I think you do anyway, because it's a really hard thing to deal with rejection, deal with people saying no, deal with all of the other pressure that comes from all different ways and shapes and forms. Sometimes that optimism requires someone to help you pump the brakes. And that's where the leader can come in and ask the questions and help the brakes get pumped a bit. I think Daryl's piece around how you handle people or how you communicate and how people feel in that kind of environment is really, really important. I'm not a feelings guy. I'm more of a robot who's very direct, and I need to lean on other people to help me with the feelings side of things. So listen to the signals and like know your skills as you go through it. But what's working, what's not working, where are you stuck? If you do those things and you've got clarity around what your KPIs are, leading, lagging, and converting, these meetings will get much better.
I want to go back to the accountability piece. Hang on one second, Brent, Mike, that you were just saying, like, as a leader, I need to be held accountable to being prepared for the funnel review, right? I need to look at everything, come up with questions, notice that something hasn't, I need to do all that work, which means that in order for me to do that, I need you as a sales rep to be accountable and making sure that your CRM is up to date so that I can do that work. And I think that when we let each other off the hook for that, like if we're not ready for that meeting, we shouldn't have it. We should use that hour to get everything updated so we can have a meeting later in the week. But what happens is you haven't done your work, so I haven't done my work, or I haven't done my work, so you don't bother doing your work, and it's sloppy and it's messy and it's a waste of everyone's time, and it's nitpicky and micromanaging because the work isn't done that allows it to be a good conversation.
And as you were sharing that, it reminded me of another thing that I had meant to bring up and just missed. It's if you don't have a funnel review cadence and all of your funnel reviews are primarily driven by how close you are to missing your number, you suck.
And you'll always be missing your number, right? If you're always worried about what's happening this week, this month, this quarter, you will always be worried about what's happening this week, this month, this quarter, and missing your number, right? That's just what happens.
It's amazing how many times people react. It's like, oh, we're going to bring everybody together and we're going to go through every single opportunity that's out there. We're going to go through them one by one and figure out what's real and what's not and whatever. Okay. Hey, if you don't go downstairs and clean your room right now, you are not going out. You can't borrow the car for the weekend. Like, what are we doing, people?
Yeah. And it's a little late then. If we start doing it when we're missing our number, we're way behind, because if you have a 6, 8, 9, 12 month, 18 month sales cycle, you're not fixing it with a funnel review this week.
The one thing I would say at the end of every meeting, to back to what Mike was saying, I think the end of every meeting, we should leave with saying to the sales rep, okay, what are you going to start doing? What are you going to stop doing? And what are you going to continue doing? And let them tell you, based on this conversation, what are the changes that you're going to make this week or this month.
And that's really the background on that whole what's working, what's not working. And
right. That's what made me think of it.
Some people struggle with the whole start, stop, continue for whatever reason. Like it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean stop something? I'm going to stop doing something. Well, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it isn't working. Sometimes you have to fire the work. Right. And so that's why I iterated, because I used to ask that, the start, stop, continue, and shifted it to the what's working, what's not working, where are you stuck? Because people really over time, they just started struggling with some of those questions, even though it ultimately gets to the same thing. It just helps shift a little bit of perspective there. Yeah, really good stuff, Bren. Thank you.
So one of my sayings for last year was, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we need to remind our salespeople of that sometimes. Stop digging, climb out. Let's start on even ground. Any last thoughts before we wrap this session up, this episode? All right. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. Okay. Last topic is, why are leads just sitting there and not progressing? And how do we solve that? Okay. Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. I'm Liz Hyman, your host, and I am here with your Sales SOS podcast crew, Chris Bowen, Mike Simmons, Bryn Tillman, and Daryl Perel. And in these 4 episodes, we've been talking about micromanaging, right? How do you hold people accountable without micromanaging? How do you support your sales team towards success without nitpicking and nagging? Nobody wants to nag. Nobody wants to be nagged. But at the same time, leaving your team without the support they need, without accountability, without checking in, that doesn't work, right? It isn't helpful. So one of the things that we find when we are not doing the best job we can in supporting our team is we find a lot of deals hanging around that are just stuck. There's no momentum. They're not closing them out. They're not moving them forward. They're just hanging out. And those conversations can get really ugly, right? Leaving the sales rep feeling really awful. And there can be lots of reasons, right? Why they're just sitting there. Maybe they're sitting there because the company said, look, we're not doing anything on this for 6 months. We've got other priorities that, we just had a flood. We're not doing anything in this for 6 months or whatever. Something happened. Sometimes it's we were in a rush. We got going too quickly and we didn't read the signals right and they're not ready to make a decision. Sometimes it's that the sales rep got busy doing something else and they didn't follow up. There's lots of reasons that things stall. But then how do you have these conversations without, again, being naggy and obnoxious and rude and making your salespeople feel terrible? What if they just forgot to follow up? What if they just forgot to put the notes in and can't remember what they were supposed to call that person about, so they've been avoiding it? Like, okay.
Wait, so this is why you need an AI note taker in every single meeting, by the way. This is so key right now. It's so easy to do. People expect it. I use Sybil and I go in and I'll say, okay, I'm meeting with Liz Hyman. What's my next step? And it will go through every call I ever had with Liz Hyman and tell me, here's where you are. This is your next step. So there's no excuse today to forget about what your next step is. And I think that this is where AI is critical. We're not replacing a human. We're making the humans better. So
I think it's huge. I think that the fact that there's AI that can help us figure out what our next steps are, that can remind us that we need to interact with more than one person, that it can remind us that don't forget this step or don't forget to get this piece of information, whatever it is, that's really powerful.
I actually go back at the end of the day and I'll say, what are all my to-dos from today? And it will say, did you send this proposal out? Did you send the recap from this message? And it will tell me all the things at the end of the day that I had to do because my AI recorded it. There is no excuse anymore. So that's my soapbox for the moment.
Okay. So we've used Sybil. We've got all our next actions, but somehow we have deals that are stuck. How do we have those conversations?
I think about any time you're ever stuck. How do you get unstuck? It's like in any situation, like you're just stuck in the mud, feeling stuck in a relationship, like whatever the thing is. How do you get unstuck? You don't try to do really, really big things at once. Like make it smaller. Don't try to do one giant leap. Break it down into smaller incremental steps and see if you can start to get some kind of forward movement. And if you can get forward movement,
I should just send a note that says I'm just following up.
Oh yeah, no, because so you must be one of those people in your CRM where all of your next steps are following up.
That's what all
then you're constantly just following up. Like I'm the follow up person, maybe, and then that could be your nickname. You could be the follower upper, because everybody needs a follow upper, right? Like
I love when people just follow up with me.
Well, everybody just wants to check in. Like, you want everybody to check in on you. Check in. I'm just checking in, just seeing the ones it is so bad lately, especially with all of the AI stuff that's happening on all of the recommendations on how to communicate different things, like no pitch, just a conversation. The curious, is this no longer a priority? Like, come on, really? Are you curious? Did you use that word as you go? Quick question. It's these things happen, and if you don't have a relationship with the people that you're working with, then you're going to likely fall into the following up trap. If you do have a relationship with the people that you're working with, then you know how they like to communicate, you know when they like to communicate. And one of the tactics, and this is just, I mean, I'm sure everybody, anyway, one of the tactics I would use in the past is I knew that we were always going to have our pipeline review meeting on Monday morning, and everybody was going to ask, I was going to have the conversation with the manager about whatever. So I just set the expectation with every one of the people I was working with. That meeting is on Monday morning. That meeting is Monday morning at 8:45 in the morning. You're going to get a note from me before that meeting asking for an update on how things are progressing. So it's not a surprise. You're helping me do my job, and I'm setting expectations with you around what the timeline is on that. And if there's no news, then there's no news. So you can also set an expectation with folks, because sometimes you're just not the priority, and that's why things get stuck.
Daryl, what do you got?
I mean, mine is really stupid. I simply say, why haven't you done this? You know, help me understand. Because I like what Brent is saying, you know, and see what Brent, the challenge with what Brent is saying is that Brent is very logical. She's got a process. A lot of reps are not. A lot of reps are scattered. You know, it's just the reality. So for people like Bryn, it's a great conversation, because I'm just going to say, well, what's going on? Well, here, let me introduce you to this tool. Maybe this will help you. You know exactly what Bryn is doing. Brilliant, boom, problem solved. But for others, they're just scattered.
I'm scattered.
I don't think so.
No, I'm completely scattered, which is why AI is my magic tool.
Let me rephrase it. Okay, I'm not disagreeing that you believe you're scattered, but I also know that you're mature and wise enough to know that because you're scattered,
yes,
you need this tool.
Yes.
Bryn, he just called you old.
Yes.
Old enough. Old enough.
Yes.
Yes.
And the reason I know that is because I'm the same way. I'm equally scattered, and I prop up my deficiencies.
Yes.
Right? That's why I'm friends with Mike. So
all of us.
Exactly.
Mike and Liz just
you got it. You nailed it. But a lot of these reps are young and scattered, and it's been interesting. I find it's been my experience. I would love to hear others. But some reps are willing, you know, to be mentored and use tools and slowly bring them into the workflow, because there's an accountability and acknowledgement that they're scattered. Other reps are willfully scattered and choose to forever remain willfully scattered. And in my experience, I just tend to ultimately just move those reps along. So to me, this is, you know, if you go into sales, I mean, there's a percentage of people that love sales, but there's a large percentage of people that go into sales because, you know, they may think they're good at it, they're relational, but more than anything, they can make a lot more money than they can make in any other job. This is a role for somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur, for lack of a better word. All right. So I'm not going to hold your hand. I will lead you to water, but I won't make you drink. You know what I'm saying? And after a while, if this is not how you're wired, you shouldn't be in this job. Is that too harsh? Mike, I know how sensitive and feeling you are, so this may have been awkward for you to hear me say that.
You always make me feel awkward. especially Saturday morning at 10 o'clock my time, 1 o'clock your time, when our teams play each other.
Tomorrow, brother.
I will have some very awkward feelings about you.
Well, you're going to have awkward feelings because it will be the death knell for the Islanders making the playoffs.
Hockey's a big thing today. I'll tell you, it is having a comeback.
Yep.
All right, Chris, how do you talk to your team when there's stalled deals in the funnel?
I think the first thing you have to understand is why, what's going on. The other thing is understand that some things are going to fall out. I've been at places before where it was you lose a deal, your pipeline goes down. Next thing you know, you're getting bludgeoned. Even though it's keeping things accurate, it's always looking at, oh, this one, your pipeline's not what it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, because I removed things that weren't there. I'm going to replace them with whatever. But you need to be able to have those conversations and understand why things aren't moving. Could be any number of reasons, but if you're not having the conversation, if you're not having some level of understanding of why it's there, you're not going to be able to help that rep out to move it. And if you're not helping your team, I don't know what you're doing in this role. Again, to go back to what Daryl said, if it becomes a consistent problem at certain things for certain reps, then you may have to move on from that person. But initially, you need to be able to set the expectation around what you expect, how often you expect it, and why it is important that we're doing it in some form of timely basis. Like I've always been like, needs to be updated at least once a week, right? Every deal, you should review it, look at it, where's it at, and then at least you've reviewed it. You may not change anything on it. Maybe nothing has changed on that deal, but you at least have reviewed every single thing that you have in your pipeline to know where it's at.
So, but you said something really important in there. I mean, it was all important. This idea that reps get in trouble for saying this deal is dead,
Or having an accurate pipeline.
For having an accurate pipeline. I always go back to this one story. We were working with a client, and we'd been working with him for a year, and there were a lot of problems in his sales organization. One being that it was being led by the COO, which is always hard. But at one point, I was sitting in the room with him when we were talking about needing to get more leads. And he said to me, and I did the sales math. You guys have all heard me do sales math. So I did the sales math with him. And he goes, Liz, I'm not spending one nickel on marketing when they've got hundreds of things in their funnel. And I said, nothing in their funnel is real. It's not real. I've been on funnel reviews with all of them. They have maybe 6 things in each of their funnels that are real. And they won't delete them because then their funnel will be empty and they have nothing to replace it with. And he looked at me and just shocked. He had no idea that they were just keeping them there. They were afraid to move them out because it would look bad. And the next week, he started working on hiring a marketing team. But we have to encourage salespeople to take things out of the funnel, and we can't beat them up when they do. If somebody decides they're not going to buy now, buy from us, buy at all, whatever, we can't change that. So you might as well just get rid of it and start focusing on something else. But when our funnels are full, we don't feel like we need to prospect, right? It's dangerous stuff.
I think that's always a dangerous place to be, because things happen. You can have a lot of things that just, or maybe it's not a lot of things. Maybe it's 1 or 2 really large deals that fall out. And because you haven't been doing that prospecting, you don't have anything else that's going to be able to fill that up. And I think that's always it's a recipe for disaster, or at least it's a recipe for walking a tightrope without a net, right? Like you have a very thin margin for error at that point.
And I do think that one of the reasons that funnels sit full and deals sit they're stuck is because leaders are only looking at the bottom of the funnel. This week, this month, this quarter. And they're not looking at the other stuff that's just hanging out there doing nothing. They're just hounding their salespeople around the stuff that's ready to close. And it creates what my dad would call a constipated funnel.
We had a thing where we had let's say a fair amount of turnover within the sales team. And so you had accounts and opportunities that got moved from rep to rep to rep over the course of a year. And some of those things were, 300, 400 days old, sitting in that same stage. And it's like, yeah, well, when you have people that continually inherit it, well, it's not a zero effort to go in and even validate whether it's accurate or right. And that takes time. And if they don't already have the relationship within that account, then that's additional time on top of that. And then you move it to somebody else because, we hired somebody that replaced that person in that territory. Okay. So now I don't have to touch it at all. Right. So you're setting bad expectations that are turning into organizationally learned behaviors.
This is one of the reasons why I've brushed or blown the dust off of this. A lot of people are out there looking for engineers and architects when ultimately all they need is a revenue plumber to just kind of get rid of the crap, move the waste forward, unclog your pipes. And if you're looking to re-engineer or re-architect things, maybe just ask yourself the question, do I need to tear everything down, or do I just need to go get an understanding of where my capacity is, where things are getting stuck, where things are getting held back? And sometimes you just need a plumber for that constipated pipeline or funnel.
There you go. Any last thoughts? It sounds like a good place to wrap up this episode. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. I hope everybody has a great day. Happy selling, everyone.